All right, Danny.
You ready?
Yep, you live.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Love Your Body podcast. I'm here with my special guest, Charles Rucker of Ruck
What's up?
Nutrition.
What up? What up?
How you feeling, my man?
Feeling good.
Yeah.
A little tired.
I know you just drove right in, so
Yeah. So we just
cover
came in
driving
from
it.
Kansas, so
Yeah.
little bit tired, but I'm good.
So you're staying in Like, do you have a house in Kansas and here, or is it just
So we have a
commuting?
house in Kansas, but we have an apartment here.
Okay.
So the lease is up next month.
Okay. Here.
So
And so you're going, okay. And then you'll be permanently in Kansas?
Well, yeah, for a little bit.
Okay.
So we there to February. My wife, she's a traveling tech, so
Okay.
she kind of can go anywhere.
Yeah.
So with Ruck Nutrition, I kind of run the company anywhere. So
That's so
we
exciting.
decided we just want to travel.
Yeah.
That's what we doing.
That's awesome. And yeah, you've had your business for how many
5 years.
5 years. Yeah, because we talked about that show in Chattanooga I saw you at. And I was like, yeah, we started around the same time. And that's
Yeah.
really special. And 5-year anniversaries and everything.
5-year
So
anniversary.
for me, it feels like a very I probably say this every year if you go back on the podcast and stuff, but it's like I feel like it's just a season of immense change for me. Like I'm getting into
Yeah.
my house, like living my apartment. So it's just
Right.
like all that stuff. And with the 5 years of Dandy Fitness, like doing a bodybuilding show, which was completely different than what I had ever done.
Yeah.
And I think I was
How'd you like it?
Oh, I loved it.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Like I really enjoyed it. Like the whole idea of getting on stage in a bikini, spray tan, hair done, makeup, all that. Like I live for that.
Right.
Like would do that every day. I think that's a part that a lot of, from what I had, talked to people about before, they were like nervous about that part. They're like, oh,
Right.
like, I gotta be like, I was like, man, like, nah, like, let's go.
Let's
like, I want to,
go,
yeah, like, I'm basically, but I was a competitive dancer growing up.
See,
So,
there you go.
that was our vibe. I mean,
Right.
literally since I was 3 years old, red lipstick, like eyelashes, like,
Yeah.
like it was just part of it. But a lot of people on my journey saw me with strongman. So we're seeing
Right.
like dirty and like, booty shorts
Yeah.
and just like running around lifting in tires and stuff.
Yeah.
So it kind of pieced back that whole,
Bringing it back.
yeah. So
Yeah.
every time I could just went on Joe's podcast, The Relentless Pursuit. And so that was one of those things where like we talked on there as well about like, just everything coming to fruition, like me
Right.
talking about those things and like people understanding like, oh, like this makes more sense, like piecing another part of my story that I thought I was clear about and had
Right.
told. But so that's been really special,
Absolutely. No, for sure. And I've noticed, like, especially when it comes to competing, like people that's played sports before,
Yeah.
because that's what got me hooked was,
Mhm.
I played football, and then once football was over, you still have that competitive instinct in you.
Yeah.
So you can't cut that off.
Right.
And so when I got on stage, it was home.
Yeah. Tell the listeners, for those that don't know, like, how far did you get in bodybuilding? Like, how far are you right now?
So I got second at the Arnold this year. I'm still
Amazing.
fighting to get to my pro card.
Yeah.
We got second the last 2 years.
Okay.
So it's still a journey, man. That's one thing about bodybuilding. I tell people all the time, like when you're in the sport, the thing about it is you're dealing with your body.
Yeah.
You can't rush it. Just
Right.
like when you get, like you get a client, they're like, I want to drop 20 pounds in a week. Well,
Right.
that's not realistic. So,
Correct.
you got to take your time with it. And, with bodybuilding, it's about, fixing
Mhm.
parts of your body
Yeah.
that need to be more developed.
Right.
And so that takes time.
Yeah. I mean, from what I had seen and a lot of the girl struggles that had talked to me afterwards about at the show and the Nashville Fit show, and even the OCB, like it was one of those, the state show, they were just like, they need to build more muscle. And for me, it was
Right.
all about that lean,
Yeah.
because I already had that muscle built. So a lot of people are like, oh, do you wish that you would have started with bodybuilding sooner versus like strongman and stuff? And I was like, no, because that's what helped me like build a ton of muscle and
Absolutely.
just be like a strong force,
Yeah.
So it was a sense, I don't want to say easier, but for me, like to lean and cut and stuff like that, I was kind of used to that
Yeah.
with strongman versus now I'm in improvement season and I'm trying to build up certain parts of my body.
Right.
Which is cool too, though. And so it's all still very brand new and very exciting,
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I'm still like, not want to say still, but like I had Alexa and Jackie on last week, and so they're just talking about their journeys with this and they've been doing it, know.
Right.
And I was like, everything still feels just like so new to me that I'm still just like kind of riding that wave.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, when you first start competing, especially if you have a good experience for your first show,
Yeah.
it's addictive.
Yeah.
Especially seeing your body change.
Yes.
And get to, a certain level of being lean that you've never seen before. It hooks you. And so
It's wild.
yeah,
It's I don't know. It's cool though, because like I said, my whole thing with like mental health, like I wanted to keep in check
right,
was like, because everybody asked me like, well, what was your goal? Did you want to win? Did you want to whatever? I was like, no. Like, truthfully, my goal was to stay healthy physically with my injury,
right,
and to not, because that's why I like moved from strongman into bodybuilding.
right.
So it's a lesser weight, so I'm not lifting up 400 pounds like every other day.
Exactly.
And even though I missed that, I'm not in pain right now, and
Absolutely.
that's the
And when you
beautiful
get
thing.
older, you're not gonna be in pain.
Exactly. So, so adapting to that, but then going from there, from like mentally didn't want to get back into body dysmorphia, like
Yeah.
issues and things of that nature, and trying to like, hone in on that. And then
And
just
that's
didn't,
huge.
yeah. And just didn't want to have like a negative experience with it.
Right.
So when I came off, I'm sitting there at dinner afterwards, people were asking me like, oh, you gonna do strongman, you gonna do this, whatever. I was like, look, I walked in heels all day long and my leg didn't give out. Like
Right.
that's huge for my injury. Like my mental, I didn't judge myself to anybody. I was very
Absolutely.
appreciative. Like when I saw somebody that looked really good, I was
Yeah.
like, man, like she's like crushed it.
Absolutely.
It was like, so that was very special. But then also still appreciating myself and not being like,
Yeah.
oh, like, I mean, you saw me walking around, like,
Yeah.
it wasn't like I was like, oh, like I shouldn't be here. Like
Nah,
it was
you was
like this, like,
confident.
yeah. And so it was just like everything on that checklist that I went. And like when I say I did everything that was asked of me, like I did everything that was asked of me.
Right.
And that was something for me too. That was huge, because with strongman, it was just like lift up that weight.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time, like, do whatever, kind of thing.
Right.
So it's like I always did what was asked of me in that too. So
Yeah.
it really did feel super cool, like just to kind of piece that together. And so after we were done, mentally, I felt really good. I still feel really good. It's Suicide Awareness Month and
Yeah.
suicide prevention. And we just had an event a couple weeks ago, and that was like out in Hadley Park. And so I did Move Fit for that.
Okay.
And so my body positive dance format, you see
There you go.
online and stuff. And we did that to kind of just like liven things up a little bit.
Right.
Because I know we talked about like with this past suicide event
Yeah.
with Rockbox, like,
Yeah.
That it's kind of hard for people to get outside themselves
And talk about it.
Yeah. And well, I mean, for you, do you feel like it comes from like an insecurity standpoint? You feel like people just don't want to be negative or seem like they're negative? Like what is it for you?
Well, for guys, especially, we're taught at an early age, not to show emotion, not to, not talk about our feelings, especially when you play sports. They always tell you, toughen up, man up, do what you got to do or whatever. So you carry that over.
Right.
And the realistic of it is, we all go through things in life.
Yeah.
And so at some point in time, life will really put it on you, try to break you. And so, you can't hold that in. You got to talk about it, because, that's where, people have breakdowns. That's where they, it drives them crazy and stuff, because they're trying to hold it in.
Yeah.
And so I think for guys, a lot of it has to do with, how we're growing up. Like I said, if you play sports, you go through that phase where, you just want to be tough. You don't want to talk about emotions. You don't want to talk about your feelings or whatever. But at the end of the day, we still have those.
Yeah.
And we still deal with things. So we have to talk about it.
And you should feel open, feel that safe space.
Absolutely.
And that's like where, with my business, for example, people have told me, well, you really should have like more boundaries, like, and just like train your clients and then like leave. Right. And I'm like, my whole thing with them is I'm creating like better people.
For sure.
And so with my whole like holistic triangle and stuff, like positivity is at the top. Like, I don't care how much you're, eating well or working out or whatever. If you're just like that negative person and like hating life, then what's the point? And so for me, it's like, I want them to feel not just strong mentally or physically, but mentally, and feel like their best self every time they leave, and have that safe space to talk about it. And
I always tell people, especially when it comes to trainers, the thing about trainers are, you're working on the physical, but you're also a therapist.
Yeah.
Like, anytime, I've worked with clients and stuff.
Yeah.
Once you get that, that attachment to them and they feel comfortable with you, they'll open up stuff to you about that they don't talk about with their family.
With nobody.
Exactly. So, you are more than just being there for their physical. You are there for their mental. And that carries over. And, being a trainer too, because mentally, if you're not right, your body's going to follow that.
Yes.
It's not going to react. So you got to.
For sure. And I talk to my girls about this all the time, like, because I have one that's moving and she's going to start doing virtual and online programming with me. And she's like, man, like, it's been 2 years, you know? I said, yeah, girl, like, I mean, you've crushed it. You've changed your whole, and now your whole mental, your whole physical, like now you're on your way to move with your man. Like, you know,
Right.
she's like, you know, just really vibing, feeling good, new job, all these things. And she's like, I couldn't have done it without this start.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, but like, you know, I said, even when she like started with me, I wasn't at my best. Like 2 years ago was like just when I had lost my boyfriend. And so he had
Gotcha.
passed away. And so it was one of those things where like I continued to train. Like I was there the
Yeah.
next day after. Like, I mean, people were just like, dang, you know, and then but
Right.
they were like there for me. They were like, you know, they understood, you know. And I was just like, I gotta stay focused, I gotta keep working, I gotta keep like, you know, in that, you know, whatever. But for me, I learned from that situation of like, okay, would it have been nice to take a little bit of time? Yes, for myself,
Right.
and not force, you know, just like going in and whatever. But it did what I wanted it to. I wanted to use like what I was going through in that trauma, but like to be around people that I had
Right.
like built this community of that, like, okay, we are fighting together. Like we
Absolutely.
really are together in this.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, I am amazing and I am a trainer and I do all these things and whatever. It's like, you know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
very real. And so it was really cool to kind of reminisce on that with her of like, look how much we've both grown.
Absolutely. And
Yes,
you know,
yes.
people deal with grief differently too.
Mhm.
You know, I lost my best friend in 2020 and I lost him, you know, in the middle of the Arnold prep. And you know, and it was devastating. And it was one of those things where I was kind of like, you know, I really was going to pull out of the Arnold.
Right.
And you know, at that moment, well, before he passed away, you know, he was sending me motivational videos, you know, getting ready for the Arnold and stuff. So it was like one of those things like, man, I can't just, you know, I can't stop. Like he would be so pissed off.
Yeah.
So, you know, I fueled it, you know, and
I love
went ahead and
that.
did the show. But, you know, everybody deals with grief differently.
Yes.
But I'm kind of like you know, I try to, you know, try to stay busy, try to, you know, keep pushing. You know, one thing about when you deal with, you know, death, you realize how important life is.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to take it for granted.
No, 100%. And it should be able to help you to turn the negative into a positive and to
Absolutely.
live your life through that. And so that's why I would be sitting there in my apartment, you know, and I'm like, man, like I'm just not doing anything. Like, I mean, yeah, I'm working, but like, I'm like, should I be going out? Like, should I be
Right.
like doing something? Should I be like what should, you know, you almost like feel like you
Guilty.
should, yeah, or that you should be doing more things to even overcompensate for them
Right.
not being here, you
Right.
know? And so I dealt with that for a while, kind of, because I was living just in my 400 square foot apartment, you know, and
Right.
everything's going through like pandemic and going through all that stuff. And it was just such a weird time.
It
And
was.
and I just felt so like self-isolated.
Yep.
And for me, that was totally not me. Like I
Yeah.
am very like, you know, in the group, like very personal, very
Yeah.
positive, whatever, doing all these events and stuff like that. And with that grief, that kind of changed me in a sense of where like now I can have clear boundaries with people, which the prep helped me as well.
Right.
But to know that like, no, it's okay if I don't go to this thing. Like it's
Absolutely.
okay. Like stop feeling guilty. Like you're still living your life if you're sitting in bed having a pizza and watching a movie. Like if that's how you want to live your life.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of special moments here recently that have been happening. And the prep allowed me to get my mental where it was like, because I'm like you, I think, in this, like I always feel like I can do more.
Absolutely.
I literally
Never
am like,
satisfied.
there's nothing that I'm like,
no ceiling.
yeah. And so even like the next day after the competition or after the show, I went back to my movement and people were like, are you like working out? Like, is that right now? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, like you're not just chilling, like you just got off the stage, you know, whatever. I was like, no, like I got this, I got this, I got this. Yeah. And then doing my reels and doing my stairs. Like, I mean, you just like, there's just so much to do. And so that's where kind of my downfall is with like, in terms of mental health is like that I feel like I almost, like I'm not doing enough.
Right.
And then people are like, you're the busiest person I know. You're this, you're that, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but like, dude, like I didn't do this. There's so much.
And I'm exactly the same way. You know, that's one thing I could say about Coda, my wife.
Mhm.
She, you know, when we started, you know, dating or whatever, cause like I'm a workaholic. Like I can work nonstop.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, like when you do something you love, like
Right.
you don't really look at it as work anyway.
Yes.
And so literally I can sit in the house and be on the computer working like all day, and not even think twice about it. And so, you know, but you know, you got to have balance. And you know, being with her, that's one thing I will say that I learned is having balance is good, because you know, it helps clear your mind, because a lot of times, like I know my life and I know your life is the same way. It can go 20 miles per hour and you're just like constantly going. And, you know, when things are moving really fast, it's really hard for you to see everything that's going on.
Yes.
And so you need to slow down and kind of just, you know, take that moment to kind of like to step back and just be like, yo, all right, so let me look at the bigger picture.
Yes.
And so that's one thing I've learned over the last couple of years is that.
I love that.
Yeah, because before 2020,
it was like nonstop,
like just crazy,
right?
And you know, 2020 obviously, you know, set me down and set everybody else down, and so you know, it was a good adjustment. You know, it's something that I feel like I needed, or I would have burned out.
Yeah, and I mean, I like. For me, the biggest thing I'll say about that is like when looking at a partner, like people are like, oh, like, should you like, do you want like some like an alpha? Like, do you want somebody like that's like you or whatever, you know, in your sport, in your stuff, whatever. And I'm like, honestly, I truthfully just want them to have like a healthy lifestyle and understand that like I can't go have Taco Bell at like midnight, you know, and be cool with that. Like if you want to, like that's your life. Like don't make me feel bad because I ain't eating it. But that understands a healthy lifestyle, but also that kind of can take you out of that, like can slow you down in that sense. But so if I'm with somebody that's like has like the same type of business, like is a personal trainer, like owns their own brand, like an entrepreneur, whatever, then we going. We grinding together right now, which can be special and can be beautiful too.
Yeah.
But I don't know, when I just envision that, like I do like to have the flip side of like when I can come there and be there, like they can get me out of it and help me through that.
Absolutely.
So that's something
I think that's huge because, you know, I've been with people who didn't work out and that did not work out at all. And then I've been with people that wasn't as ambitious as I am. And that doesn't work out either.
Right.
So you do got to have somebody that, you know, can match your level on, you know, your ambition and your drive.
Yes.
But I feel like, you know, when you find somebody else, you always got to find somebody that's going to help balance you out.
Right.
You know, help bring those qualities out of you that can make you better.
For sure.
You know, obviously, if y'all both the same person, and y'all grind. Like,
but there's so many guys out here I talk to that like they want that like same person or that same stuff or whatever. Or it's really hard because I think men, you know, and I'm really good friends with like Logan and Tyler and all them, and so we talk, you know, on the phone and stuff about like mental health and like them being vulnerable, and like that is one of the most attractive things to me is in my friends and people around me that like seeing them like and hearing them talk about that. Like it's not all just sunshine and rainbows. Like we actually like in this talking together and they talk about it. And I'm like, you know, that is so special. And I feel like a lot more men that I've seen are talking about it and starting to get that and be open more. And I love that. But it's almost like now it's kind of like they're meshing that with like the ex-athlete they used to be. And so it's almost where like they're like, okay, well, when I get to be perfect, like when I get to be better, then I will like start dating or like, then I will start whatever. And that's why I tell my people, I'm like, y'all, and even my friends, I'm like life is short. Like, I don't know if you saw that thing about the comet or whatever, like about NASA. It was talking about did you see that, Trent? It was like, I don't know. It's real.
UFOs.
But no, he was saying like an asteroid. He was basically saying that like, I think the NASA like has their shit together. That like if something were to come to Earth, like they could stop it. Okay. And, but how it looked on the thing, was it on Twitter or whatever? It looked like, oh, this is our last day on Earth.
Oh,
like it's done. Like, you know, so I was like, oh man. And immediately, you know what I think about? I think about all these men out here that were like, that never like asked me out or whatever, because they were like, oh, like I'm working on myself or I'm doing my whatever. Together. Yeah. But, and even just like my girls and stuff, how they're like, oh, I'll go to the wedding when I lose the weight. I'll get married when I do this. I'll do this when I do this. And it's like, nah, like you just gotta start now. And like I had my reunion a couple weekends ago, and like you know, it was very stressful after the suicide event to like get there and everything like that, you know, doing Move Fit and exhausted and whatever. And I showed up, I just put one foot in front of the other, and I like went there, and it was so great. It was a beautiful night. Didn't drink, you know, whatever, stayed on my plan, like, but it was just like a cool moment of like, man, like all this work I'm doing really is making a difference. And like hearing people and like, and how they're like, yeah, I don't know if you know, I follow you. Like you helped me through this like tragedy or this or whatever. Like, and those moments, those social connections like really helped me. But if I would have waited to be like, oh man, judges at the bodybuilding competition said I don't have a booty.
Yeah.
So like I gotta build my glutes up and then I can go to my reunion. Or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
no, for sure.
and like, it's like, no, just embrace how you are and just enjoy that. So that's been something I've noticed that, and I don't know.
And nothing's ever the right moment. That's one thing. Like you can wait on things forever.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be the right moment.
Right.
You know, and so the more you put them off, you know, the more time you're wasting.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing about it is you just gotta, you know, you just gotta go. I've always been a risk taker. So like, I'm like, I think of something, I'm like on it like immediately. And you know, that's good and bad because you know, it can go great or it can go terrible.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, you know, you're moving though. You know what I'm saying? You are doing something. And so, like I said, like, you know, you dealt with death and I've dealt with death. And like at the end of the day, tomorrow's not promised.
Right.
So you waiting and putting things off, you know, you're waiting on what? Like we all have a timeline.
Yeah.
And at every day that we wake up is one day closer to our last day here.
Yeah.
So you waiting is you're just waiting for like whatever you want to do. Like if you wait, you know, 5 years and you do it, then think about all the time that you wasted where you could have been doing it. You could have been enjoying it. So you got to go ahead and do it now.
Well, and that was like, you know, we talked to you. You asked me earlier if my my workout went well with Doug, you know, because I always work out at Olympus with him whenever I'm in the borough. And it was good and everything. But like originally he had said something along the lines of like, yeah, you should do the October show. But I was like, nah, like I'm gonna do the August show because Whitney Weiser, you know, just like was, you know, sponsored with her and then was a sponsor of the event. And so it just made sense, like all female show from a business standpoint.
It's a great show.
Yeah. And from a standpoint, and yeah, you had your booth there as well. And I know, you know, rocking with it. And so it was, and I was like, it's local. Like I should do it. People can show up because with Strongman, I didn't really have anybody show up except for the one that was here and when I flipped the tire. So which was special and it was great. But all those other ones, nobody was ever at because they were in Kentucky, Iowa, all over. And so I was like, no, I really want to do that one. And he's like, I mean, okay. And I'm like, but I was just like, again, with the sport bodybuilding, obviously you want to be as in the best physique as you can and whatever. But I was like, man, I just don't want to wait for another whole year. Like I want to just like really grind, really see this through and be intentional, you know, with it.
Oh, and that's the thing with bodybuilding. Like, you know, I hate when people ask me like when I'm getting ready for a show, like, you know, you think you're going to win or, you know, is that your focus just to, you know, win or whatever? Obviously, nobody wants to lose.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, when it comes to bodybuilding, you got to also understand that, you know, it's a sport that you're judged.
Yeah.
You're judged by 7 people with 7 different opinions. So, I mean, you can bust your ass from start to finish.
Right.
And they might not like the color of your suit or the color of your shorts or one little thing can be off because you're only on stage for 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And you work for, you know, 15 weeks.
Right.
So, I always tell people like when it comes to bodybuilding, man, you gotta make sure you're doing that for you.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta make sure you're doing that for, you know, the results that you want.
Yes.
If it's about winning and losing, this is one sport where nobody goes undefeated.
Right.
There's nobody that's ever went undefeated. So, you know what I'm saying? Everybody loses. So, you know, you obviously, like I said, nobody wants to lose. But your mindset got to be in a different spot when you're doing the sport. Because if you don't, you know, it will mess you up. Because like I know when I first started, I came from football and boxing.
Yeah.
And so those are performance-based sports where, you know, if you bust your ass, you know, you perform well during the sport.
Right.
9 times out of 10, it turns out right.
Yeah.
You know, this sport, like I said, you could do everything right for 15 weeks.
Yeah.
Get on stage for 15 seconds and this doesn't go your way.
For
and
sure.
So you got to make sure mentally you're strong enough to understand that.
Well, and I think too, mentally understand that, but also like be like around people that like are confident in themselves as well and like positive, because that's why like I would tag everybody like you know and all my stuff or whatever, because it was just like that helped me stay accountable.
Yeah.
And because I'm like I know they're doing the same thing, or I know you're out here grinding, or I know whatever. And so it's like I kind of you know needed that, so I try to create that even if it's not there, you know what I mean? And and like build that and so it was really special to see, like even on show day and stuff, like even you and just like I mean there was like Alpha Cookies and like all these different people and sponsors and whatever, and they were all like, Dani, like, you know, I'm just so positive. And it was like,
super proud of you.
Thank you.
All the work that you put in.
And that was cool because again, it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like, dang, you're the baddest out there because you're gonna like you're like, or you won, and like, you know, and get that like that confirmation.
Right.
Because with dance, it was always like, oh, you won. Here's your trophy. Like, great job. Now it was just like, damn, like you've been working, like, and we're proud of you for that.
Absolutely.
And that showed more of like the mental fortitude for me, the strength, like just all of that versus like, okay, like I just came out here and like I was a, you know, like a bitch, you know, or whatever. And like didn't do it the way I wanted to. I was very alone and like, you know, and stuff like that. And so I feel like I did it in the right way. And that was really special. But I could not have done it without the, like, again, leaning into that support. And that's where, like, you know, with the whole mental health stuff, like I told you or whatever, I was like, man, like, you know, even getting here today, like it's gonna be a lot, it's gonna be whatever. But I was like, just take it one day at a time. And
absolutely.
Like, and I
that's
had,
all you can do.
And I had my friend come help me like pack up my stuff. That was a big help. And then like yesterday, I worked with my clients. Like, so it's just like one day. And I never used to look at things like that. Like as a business owner, I was always projecting.
You got to think of the future.
Yeah. But like, it was almost not even that I was in the future, but it was like almost like we have so much to get done. Let's like get through, like get through it, you know, versus.
It's funny you said that. No,
that?
like seriously. Cause like my, you know, especially the first part of my career, you know, I won my first show and then I ended up getting like my big contract, like by like my third show. And so I was like traveling on the road or whatever
for modeling stuff?
Yeah, okay, for fitness modeling. So it was crazy because, you know, looking back on it, like everything was moving so fast that I never took the time to live in the moment.
Yes.
And so like you was always just waiting for the next thing or the next place or whatever. And it was just moving so fast. Like now I'm like, man, I did some cool shit, but you don't remember a lot of it because you're on the go so much, and that's not how it's supposed to be. You gotta live in the moment. You gotta enjoy every second.
But really, like for me, it's like, how do you? I mean, especially if you don't have a team, right? And let's say, like, because that there's that event that I went to, I really wanted to like go see the sponsors, like go do the things, whatever. But like, I'll be real with you, like this is how it went down. Been training clients since 6 a.m. that morning. Okay. Then I had been on a radio talk show like 2 days before and it was like launching. So literally I'm in the car eating meal prep. My mom's doing my makeup. We're listening to the radio show. Okay. This is right after the training the clients. Then from there, we drive to the event. Okay. We set up the stuff. Clients show up. People show up. I'm like, hey, what's up? What's good? You know, maybe for like 15 minutes. Then I go on and do Move Fit. Well, then afterwards, people come over to the booth. We're talking. Okay, cool. So that's awesome. We're taking pictures. They're interviewing me for this. We're doing that. Okay. Now I'm eating my meal prep. Now I'm doing this reel because I got to get this posted, right? Because we just did this. I like to be authentic and in the moment. Okay. So then so now I'm looking at it. I'm like, shoot, it's 2:00. Okay. All my people have gone because they've all enjoyed the event. I haven't done a single thing, but I got to get out of here because I got to get to my reunion that night, right?
So how do you
see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at what moment was I supposed to like go? You see what I mean? And again, you can be like, okay, well, you shouldn't have overbooked. But again, it's like, I mean, yeah, I could have not trained clients that morning and shown up, but the run of the event would have been that same deal. So it was just like almost like I didn't have a moment to
soak it all in.
And that really was like upsetting for me. So I was trying to be intentional with like the rock box, like with that event of like actually enjoying it versus, okay, I got to set my booth and here's this and here's some fight for everybody. And like, okay, you're enjoying it. You're happy. And then I'm like over here, like, but am I like, you know what I'm saying?
And that's, you know, that's the hard part, you know, with it because, you know, I've been doing it for 12 years and I haven't figured it out yet. I'm gonna be completely real. You know, it was cool with us moving to Kansas. So Kansas, you know, moving there where we don't really know anybody, it made me slow down. So it was like, oh shit, like you look at everything completely different, especially when, you know, your life for the last 12 years has been 100 miles per hour. So, but like, you know, that part of it, you know, especially being a business owner, you know, being an athlete and, you know, doing multiple things, like, I don't know how to do it. Like, I don't know how to slow it down. And I ask other friends that are, you know, entrepreneurs that do the same thing. And, you know,
I think we're all kind of in that same boat.
So
it's like, I want to give advice on it and everything like that, but it's like, you know, I mean, I will say that I try to set the intention of the day of like, I'm just going to be like my best and whatever that looks like. Like I'm going to give my all to Move Fit. I'm going to give my all to this. I'm going to give my all whatever. And it is helping people. And in that sense, it is like for them. Okay. So, and like Dani D Fitness is doing that for them. So with other events, it's almost like I have to go outside of that and make time in my schedule to be like, okay, that movie that I went to, like that is for my mental health.
Absolutely.
And like by myself or with a, girlfriend or whoever. Right. And so again, it adds more stress, especially if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, whatever, because you already got so much going on. But to like carve out that time is huge. I don't know if y'all do like date nights and stuff or are intentional about that.
We're intentional about it at least once a week.
Yeah.
You got like, that's the thing is like, you got to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
You got to be intentional about time for yourself, and you got to be intentional about, spending time with others, because if you don't, like life will suck you up.
Yes. And that's how I felt. So that's why I'm like, I think especially with the prep, because I just couldn't have the capacity, to do stuff.
Especially in prep.
Like I didn't have the capacity. So people were like, hey, like, let's do this or whatever. I was like, no, like that was it. That was like no explanation. I was just like, I can't. Like,
and that's what and that's the crazy thing. Like, that's why I tell people, like, even with me doing multiple sports growing up or whatever, bodybuilding is the hardest sport I've ever done, and the reason why is because it's 24/7.
Yeah,
like any other sport, you go to practice, obviously you play the game or whatever, but outside of that, like, you can have a life.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Well, bodybuilding is 24/7.
Yep.
From the moment you start prep to the moment you get off stage. And so it doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you. Because you going out, you going to have a drink, or you're just going out to have lunch or something. Like that's not your reality for that moment in time.
Have you always been in a relationship since you've been doing bodybuilding?
No.
Okay, so you had some times where you were like on everything. That how do you like with differentiating it? I mean, was there anything where you were like, it was harder alone, and I'm glad I had that person right there, or was it like, no, it was a flip? Like
it was, kind of like what I was saying when I was like, there for a while, everything was moving so fast. I don't feel like I enjoyed it. That was one thing about it too, was, I did get to do a lot of cool stuff, and it's great to do those things. But when you're doing it by yourself, like, it's kind of like, damn, like, I wish my boy was here, or somebody was here to enjoy it, because, you see all this cool things, and you get to see, the country and travel and all this, but you're seeing it by yourself. So, it's definitely better to do it with somebody. Now, I will say, it has to be that right person, because like they got to understand, what you do and everything too, because, if not, it can be very stressful.
Well, everyone had kind of like laughed at me when I said this, but I was very open about it. I'm pretty real about stuff. It was like when I started my prep and really like started in my mind, like stop the drinking, stop all the stuff, and was like, I'm in this. That was like January, and the show was August. Okay. And I'd already been like eating well and doing all these things and working with Doug and whatever up to that point, but much slower progress than when like January, I was like, let's go. So when that happened in that moment, I told people, I was like, like, I think it was like a couple guys I had been like going on dates with and whatever, and stuff like that. And I was like, this is just, there's a direct correlation of like them and their nonsense making me want to eat food, or
For
like
sure.
them and their nonsense making me like stay up later than I should, or like whatever it might be. And so when people always be like, oh yeah, I'm not really talking to anybody, I was like, no, I mean, like, I'm not talking to nobody. Like but I made that boundary. And that was the first time like in my adult life that like that I've done that. And it felt so good, because it was just like, I genuinely can look back and be like, yes, I had the support of my friends and those people and whatever. And that's great. And other business owners and whatever for this prep, but I didn't have someone that was like pulling me down or dragging me down or whatever.
No.
And because it wasn't the right person.
Right.
And so that was something that I think that so many people think that, oh, as long as I have somebody, like they're okay, and they make excuses for them and they're like, whatever. But I'm like, if you really look at it in that black and white face, and they're like, oh no, well, and they make excuses. I'm like, nah, look at it like that.
Yeah.
Like, and when you do that, it just makes things so much clearer. And that's how, like, when I had no capacity to think about other things because of whether it was the workouts or lower calorie intake or whatever, and the body changes and stuff, I was just like, nah, this ain't it.
No.
And I love having that mentality.
Absolutely. And so that's the thing. Like, I'm the same way. I'm very stubborn. So, any, relationship or anything I've had in the past, if it was pulling me away, like I'm out. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, and everybody's not like that, because it can go the opposite.
Right.
Where if you're not with the right person, they're gonna pull you away. They're gonna pull you out of, your goals or what you're trying to do. And so it is very important for you to have the right person that, is going to push and support you, and that does understand your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because, being in this lifestyle is different. It's completely different than, most people. And so everybody doesn't understand that. And, everybody doesn't get that. And, even like when I was traveling, there was times, I might be gone for like 3 weeks at a time. And so, being with somebody, they had to understand that.
Right.
And they had to, they had to be able to trust me and whatnot, and stuff like that. And so, even with the sport, even with that part of it, it's hard too, because, you're in a sport where, it's based off appearance. So majority of everybody in fitness, looks good. And so, for somebody that's not in the sport,
right,
and looking at you traveling and you're around all these people all the time, it takes a strong person to do it.
Yeah.
And so you have to have the right person.
Yeah. Oh, I agree for sure. And I do think that there's something special about, like I said, having your own time for yourself to figure that out. And then there's so I guess like for me, it's like when I look at everything, it's just, again, adapting to like work on your best self, for, what the show is or your goals or whatever it might be. And to be ready for like, if that person does come around or whenever they do, that it's like, they just vibe with it. Like they just rock with it and are open to do that,
And I feel like, the thing is not looking for that person.
Right.
Like the right person will come when it's supposed to come.
Yeah.
When I feel like a lot of people make the mistake because they will they're looking for love. Yes. They're looking for that person. Well, when you're looking for something, you're going to hit a lot of duds before you find the right thing. Yeah. And so when you do find the right person, it's going to come like when you're not expecting it, and it's going to click just like that, and you're going to know it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very important for you to, be patient with yourself, because during that time you need to learn yourself.
Yeah. And I do feel like with this season, like I said, with everything slowing down and whatever, it all just feels very just like cosmic, feels very good. Like I'm very like at one with everything, which is awesome. But it does have me like, like I said, with the whole mental health side of things, like just always that whole like wanting to do more and everything. Right. But I feel like that's God telling me like, you have like this gift, like embrace it. Like I'm here for you and I will keep you on the path,
Absolutely.
And so just kind of like really leaning into that. But I will say, like, what would you say is the best advice for like guys listening? And like even, females and people who have like partners that maybe don't open up as much and stuff like that, like with the grief and everything. Did you go to like counseling? Did you do like couples therapy? Did you do like a grief group or anything? Like,
yeah, actually I went to therapy, for me, 2020, because I always felt like one of my strongest qualities was my mind. I've always been headstrong. You know what I'm saying? So like, being in a car wreck and being different things, like mentally I could pull myself out of that.
Yeah.
But like when you deal with, the things I went through in 2020, where it affects you mentally, you obviously, at that moment you lose your strongest weapon.
Yeah.
And so I did. I had to go seek help for that, because it was one of those things that, normally what I would normally be able to pull myself out of, my strongest quality, couldn't pull myself out of it.
Yeah.
And around that, also having the right people around you.
Yes.
My wife and my friends, they were really, really a big part of me getting through that. And awesome. But I do think talking to somebody, finding the right therapist and, talking to somebody, that helps.
And that's a great point. So once he passed, even before that, I had actually started talking to a therapist, and it was just not it. Like me and the dude did not work. I went in there in person. It's just like not a vibe. And so then I was like, man, okay. And it took me a lot, because I was one of those people that was kind of like, oh yeah, like therapy.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Because I helped so many people that I'm like, nah, I got this, And so it took like kind of getting off my, deal for a little bit because of everything that, Wes had like put me through, that it was just like, okay, I gotta have this external source. Like I gotta figure this out.
Right.
And when I, when I was sitting there, I was like, yeah, this person, I don't click with them. Okay. It's not really working. So then I called another place and I was like, hey, is there anyone that you can set me up with? Well, then I had this like Zoom meeting with this girl, and she was like, basically she'd said something like, you're like, she didn't say in these words, but like, you're so far gone that like, I can't help you or something like that.
Don't you hate that?
Yeah. Cause I was like, oh dang, like okay, like and so
Yeah.
I was like, so she just like kind of like left the chat and was like, I'll like give you some resources to find someone else. I'm like,
Right.
bro, this is my second one, like what,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. And I do like the number 3, so that's fine, whatever, it's my lucky number. But I literally I was like, I'm gonna give this one more shot.
Yeah.
And so they actually had ended up calling me, like I didn't seek them out, but because that just the week got busy and stuff like that. And this was actually like around like right around when he passed. And so they they call me up and, you know, I'm just like still working, distraught. And then they said something like, yeah, we have this woman, you know, and her name's Danielle.
Yeah.
So like, that's my name. And she's like, yeah, and well, she'd love to talk to you or whatever. And it's like that. I was like, fine, okay. Literally, the first session is virtual, or it's actually just a phone call. I laid out everything that had happened in that past like year and a half. And like, she was just so great. Like it was this immense, like, oh my gosh, you know, because I talked to friends and I kind of overwhelmed them. And that's a lot with grief. Like you don't realize that you're doing that.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I was just like, I could not get my brain would not function.
Talk about it.
Yeah. And it just was like, I was almost like spinning my wheels. And so she just like grounded me real quick. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. So, I mean, literally seeing her, once a week since then for 2 years. I mean, and it's been the best thing that I did. But again, it's kind of like when you're looking for a gym, you know, you have a bad experience and you're like, I'm never going to the gym again.
You can't do that.
It's no, you got to keep. And that's why I tell people all the time. They're like, you know, oh, like, well, you know, your trainer or whatever. I'm like, you think this is the first coach I've had? Like I've been having trainers since I was like 16, like since I first got my injury, like I've been having this. I had to try. I went to like every class in Nashville and nobody took me seriously, whether it was CrossFit, Barry's, whatever. They handed me like light weights because of how I looked. And it was one of those things like, no, like I'm actually really fit. Like, can we challenge me? And they're like, no, like just do the female weight. And it's like, okay, you know, so it just, again, it's like finding that right group and it takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. You got to be patient with it.
Yeah.
You know, my first therapy session, I did the same thing like you. I laid it all out. I was like because I had like crazy childhood, so I laid out everything, and that was this, you know, pretty much I laid out everything, and then at the end she was like, okay, that was a lot, let me process this and we'll talk again. And I'm like I was pissed. I was like where do you go from there? And so, you know, you got to find the right person. You know, everybody's story is different. And, you know, everybody, you know, has different things that they dealt with.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm cool with you being upfront, like, yo, you know, you got more issues than I can deal with. So, you know, and so you got to be patient. You got to understand that. But you can't give up. Like at the end of the day, like you gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
It'll drive you crazy if you don't.
Oh, 100%. And that was my thing is like, I've always been that person to try to find a way to make it work. Like whether it's, you know, whatever. And so for me, like having her then I was like, okay, cool. So I got that part of it. And then like with my fitness stuff, like I'd had help and had someone come on as a contractor and he was working, you know, under Dani Fitness. Like that helped me for a little while, for a time. And then, you know, and then for me, it was like physically, okay, I had heard about Doug, you know, but I didn't know like, you know, me in the borough and whatever. Well, my dad got sick. So he had heart failure. So so now he's on 15, you know, I found out this yesterday, but his heart was at 15% this time last year. He did his yearly checkup and that's at 52%.
Oh, that's awesome.
So but that was super cool, but they still don't really know what happened. And so it's just been very like weird. And so when that happened, it was like, okay, well, I just got that coach. And I was complaining. I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to go to the borough, like, you know, every other week to see him and whatever. And then my dad got sick. I'm like, I guess I'm in the borough like every week, you know, and so it all worked like in that way too. So it kind of put things again in that perspective of like, now when I come into town, you know, I'm like podcast, workout, family, you know, let's like do it all. Which before I was like, oh, you know, I live in Nashville and I got to drive 45 minutes, you know what I mean? Like so ridiculous. And so, but it took him getting sick really for me to like, you know, feel that. And it was so weird because when Wes passed away, like before he had the same situation with his heart or like a similar situation. And so with his heart, and so his heart was like 18%.
Wow.
And I'm just like, dude,
what caused it?
How is it? So, well, with him, with Wes, it was, probably the steroids and the drugs he was doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And, but, that nobody knew about, but when he, also was doing strongman and stuff like that. So like, you know, but his heart like failed and in a coma and all that stuff. And then with my dad, they said that they thought it was just something like viral that like attacked his heart, but just like shut off like three like of the arteries, like three of the valves or whatever. And like and it was super weird. I mean, because like they assumed because he was X amount of weight, like a little bit overweight, that it would have been like the high cholesterol. He didn't have any of that. Like he didn't have anything. No nothing. And that's how I've always been too. Like I walked in a doctor and they're like, oh, well, obviously obese or whatever. And then it's like, cool. And but they're like, but and then they're like, since I was a child, but then it's like, but I'm like, no, I'm an athlete or whatever. And they're like, oh, okay. And so then they'd be like, okay, no diabetes though, no high cholesterol, no whatever. I'm like, nah. Like we good. So that's why, and my dad's been the same way.
Right.
And now he's not perfect with eating and like he doesn't, he moves physically or whatever for his job. But yeah, so it was just bizarre. And so they just try to kind of just like, we're like, oh, well, it's not this. And when he actually left the hospital the first time, I told Mama, I got a weird feeling. Like, I don't think I should leave. And she's like, nah, they said he can go back and they put him on this stuff and whatever. I'd help the water weight come off and all these things, whatever. And I was like, I don't know. And so I was actually supposed to go out of town.
Yeah.
And so whenever she, I had this weird feeling, I was like, can I take in my time? I was like, can I pack my stuff up? Cause I'm still kind of resentful about going back to Murfreesboro. I'm like, okay, well, and I got on an airplane, whatever. Anyway. And she texted me and was like, your dad just had a stroke. Like we're headed to, like, I'm at the hospital now or whatever.
Told you.
And I was like, I literally threw everything that I could think of that I would need for like whatever, and just and a charger, whatever, and then like got in the car, got to the borough in like probably less than 30 minutes because I was like speeding.
For sure.
And literally I was there, and I call her. I'm like, what do you need? Because it's just like she made it to the hospital in like 8 minutes, and we lived outside of town, so you know what I mean. My parents did it, so she's just like flipping out, but she got him there. Thankfully. But anyway, now he has pretty much the function back in his hand, but he like lost all function of like his arm and everything, and part of his chest and stuff. And it was so, I was like, oh, this is real. Like at that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, And so basically we spent the whole weekend, it was Labor Day weekend. We spent the whole weekend just like in the hospital with him. And this is like still kind of during pandemic stuff, so it's like everyone's sitting there and be like, okay, one in, one out. And I was like, I had clients and doctors that worked there. So I was like, hey, me and my mom are gonna, like get me in. Yeah. And so they were like, all right. And so we literally spent the whole weekend, and like, I would actually be like, I'd go work out and like give them some time. And then like mom would go home, shower, and then like give me some time.
Alternate.
And it was probably the best family dynamic we've had, but in something so tragic, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that happens.
And yeah. And so it was just so weird. And so again, going through that, I don't think I could have made it through that if I wouldn't have had the prior loss.
Right.
And so again, it wasn't like I'm like, oh, well, this happened because of this and whatever, but it did truly make me stronger.
For sure.
Because when I say that, like, I loved Wes as much, like, the most that I'd ever loved someone, I always had said, like, I love my dad more.
Right.
But like, that's the only comparable person.
Right.
And then for a year later, that to happen.
Yeah.
But now we're here a year later, right? So come on, 2 years of that anniversary, and then a year of my dad, and then to have him have progressed.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, and it just feels so beautiful. Like,
and I think that's, I do think that that's God. You know what I'm saying? Because like, even for me with 2020, I lost my best friend out the bat, and then I lost like 8 people, and then I lost another one of my friends that I grew up with, and I was with him all day long. He died like right after I left. And, dealing with that allowed me to be able to sit with my grandmother the night she passed away. Because I probably wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't go through all that before. And so I always think about that. Like, I had to go through what I went through to be able to do that moment. Yeah. And so it's just crazy how God works, because I definitely think that, that's all steps of becoming stronger to be able to deal with something that you're going to have to really be strong about.
Yes. And I do think that, like, my whole slogan is fight for what you want. Right. So it's like, I do think that truly, like, it is a continuous fight. I used to have somebody tell me, like, no, just like be, just like be or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but like that fight, like, keeps me going. Like, that's like when things do come down so hard on you all the time. And like, that is what, like, I would be laying there. There was multiple times throughout this prep, throughout even strongman, where I look down at my band and I'm like, oh, shit, get back up. Like, you know what I mean? And it helped me to keep going. And so, but it's like, every time I think about that, I think about how I fought through everything that happened with Wes, everything that happened with Dad, everything that's gonna happen. I mean, and so it's almost like, Logan and them had said on the podcast, they're like, oh, well, can't get much worse than that, like from the story that I told or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I mean, not really, but even if it did, I'm so much more capable now to handle it
sure.
And the resources and like doing, and like I've done grief group, done therapy, and I'm open about that with people and potential partners or people that I talk to or whatever, saying like, you know, like I had therapy today, like, and not making it look as like a negative or, oh, my check-in didn't go as well as it should have gone, or like things that I think as business owners, as, you know, for me, a young female entrepreneur, like trying to, you know, level up all the time, whatever. It's like, you want to be that boss, but also like, this is, and that's why I love this podcast, is to be able to like talk about how, like, you know, you can be vulnerable and you can be human. And in this world that people act as if you almost can't. And I thought that was so crazy. And I will say, I had a post the other day, and there was like this bikini. It's long story short, but there's a bikini that I couldn't even get over my legs. Like, couldn't even do that this brand had sent me. And I was like, dang, y'all, like, I was really upset, and I like was distraught, crying during this prep because I was like, dang, like they sent me a medium that wasn't even my size, and like I really need a posing suit, and I pay a lot of money for this, like whatever. And so anyway, that happened, but I posted of me in it the other day because I'm packing up my stuff, and it was just sitting there, and I'm like, I need to see if, like, does this even fit? Whatever. Threw it on, looked great, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so it was like that moment of like, I was just like, I don't know. And so I wrote this post or whatever, and like somebody had commented on it, and again, I've had so much like negativity and like hit back about stuff, but I've also had positivity.
You get negative comments too.
Oh, of course.
I was like, because I get them too. And so when I was talking to Joe hasn't, you know, he hasn't started getting those yet. And I was like, yo, just wait.
Wait. Yeah.
They're coming.
And no matter what you do, like, and it's so, it doesn't matter if you're just in there smiling. You look too happy. It's like, so I've always told people, like, back up, like, you know, like nothing's going to kill my vibe because like, I look great, you know, I feel great, like whatever, and things are good. But it was funny because I said something like, there was like this gym, and they were like, oh, so you didn't LYB throughout? I was like, you go use my own slogan. And I was like, no, I did. That's what I'm saying. That like I kept fighting. I kept going.
Know what's so crazy? I be thinking like in my head when people like, because you get comments and you're just like, yo, you took the time to write this out, read it, and then hit send. And I'm just like, how fucked up are you?
Right. Exactly.
Like, literally to take the time to just to write something negative.
Yeah. And I always look at the source, and I always look at it like, okay, like, it, you know, and kind of not give them an excuse, but understand, because I want to understand people. I want to understand that, like, you somebody that is, you know, was an athlete and that, you know, maybe had a lower body percent fat, you know, or fat percentage their whole life, maybe like, it's like, maybe instead of being like, oh, well, obviously he's just like doing bodybuilding, like, no, like he took the time to like really fight for what he wanted, you know, and just like, and kind of like look at that as a whole. And so like I look at it like, okay, I understand kind of where that's coming from, whatever. Maybe you misunderstood the caption, maybe I wasn't clear because I'm moving 1,000,000 miles an hour, whatever. But I was just like, no, simply put, like, I continued and did the show, and if I wouldn't have loved my body throughout, I would not have competed. I would have let that stop me.
And a lot of times, you know, they just want a reaction out of you,
right?
You know, I've learned my lesson on that. A couple of times I've lost my temper on it, and you know, they'll screenshot it, put it on their story or something, like, you know what I'm saying. So they just want a reaction out of you, and I mean, it does suck because you get like 100 good comments, and then that one negative one. You know, it stings. Like, you look at it and you read that. That's the one you remember out of all of them.
Yeah. I will say it was funny because I didn't even know like Facebook Reels was like a thing. You know, I knew like Instagram Reels was a thing. And I'm like the worst. I literally, like, even with TikTok, when my video went viral, dude, I literally, like, I had 20 followers before that, didn't even know how to work TikTok, had my client help me. Yeah. Like, and so it was one of those where like, and it just happened. Okay. Right. Well, with Facebook, kind of a similar thing happened. I was like, oh shoot, I haven't even been putting these reels on there. I've been putting it on Instagram. It's not going there automatically. That's stupid. Okay. So I literally, let's make this a little bit harder and take more time up in my day. But anyway, so I put a reel up of me from when the Nashville Fit Show forum. And I'm like, you know, doing my stuff. And like, you gotta understand that moment, I was so confident. And I was like, let's go, post, and whatever. Right. And then I put one on the stage. And so it switches or whatever, that transition. Anyway, it kind of blew up. I saw all these comments. I'm like, who is this person? Whatever. And I didn't realize. And anyway, but there was a lot of negativity on that. But what people don't know is that day that like they were posting on the negativity, I was literally wearing these pants, had on like a Born Primitive like sports bra, and I did like the most pull-ups I've ever done.
Right.
And I had taken a video, or someone took a video of me doing them, and I was just like, damn, you look amazing.
Right.
Like, and I truly was just like at one with myself.
Yeah.
So it's just like one of those moments where it was just like, I'm so far gone on this journey and this point of like, I've had so much negativity, had so much whatever, that it has made me so strong that I was like, y'all are not gonna mess up anything, because like I feel so beautiful.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, and so that's something that I want people to understand too, that like if you are getting hate or if you are getting like nonsense, whatever, like at the end of the day,
care what people think.
Yeah. And also it's always gonna happen.
Absolutely.
No matter if you are Ruck Nutrition or if you're Dani D or you whoever, it's always gonna happen. So it's like you have to really live in like who you are and like what your mission is, and like and have that slogan or have that thing that you like take with you and keep with you always.
Absolutely.
And that has, I mean, like I said, saved me, and movement, you know, has saved my life many times. Right. And so, you know, I've been really grateful to be able to be a part of these suicide events, everything like that. And like, I wanted to ask you guys, like, what kind of was your connection with like Rockbox and like being a part of the event?
Actually, so I've known Craig and Wendy for a long time.
Okay.
And you know, she talked to me about it. And you know, I jump on anything when it comes to mental health. You know what I'm saying? I grew up, my mom's had mental health issues her whole life. Mm-hmm. So I've always dealt with it, you know, and then 2020 I dealt with it for myself.
Yeah.
So mental health has always been a big part of my life. So I'm big on, you know, trying to get the message out there and trying to get people to talk about it and stuff like that, especially when, like I said, when it comes to guys. So when she talked to me about it, I was all for it. You know, anything like that, I'm with it.
Yeah.
You know, anything that can try to be something positive that can help other people.
I love it.
I'm all about it. So, you know, when when they was telling us the idea and everything, and the thing is, the event that, you know, they created, it was such an amazing event because, you know, it brought the community together.
Right.
And that's one thing about it, is like bringing the community together
through movement,
absolutely,
through positivity. Like, yes, I love that.
And so, you know, anything like that, I'm always going to be more happy to help with.
Yeah. And this is actually like, that was the first time, like, I'm not doing, like, I didn't do Move Fit there.
Right.
And like, for me, you know, cause like, and that's why I'd asked like Hoda, I was like, you know, do you need me to Move Fit? Like, what's up? Cause that's usually what's always asked of me.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, here we're getting like steps closer to where I can actually like, enjoy the event. Not that like, and not like that, you know, working a booth is not working a booth. Right. Yeah. But like, again, just being there as that presence of people to help them to like, you know, maybe they look at a sticker and it says like, love your body. And they're like,
right.
Yeah, like
I need that.
Yeah, like I need that.
No,
yeah,
need
exactly.
that
Or like fight for, or a band that's like fight for what you want. They're like, yeah, you know, I just started my fitness and like it's really helping my mental health. I'm like, yeah, I am gonna fight now.
Absolutely.
Like, or whatever it might be. And so it's again like I try to make this, you know, platform be able to reach people and help people in any way, whether that's wearing a shirt, wearing a band, you know, whatever it is. Because again, what we want in the fitness industry and what we want for the mental health industry and for everyone, mental health, is that we want you to be able to have that safe space and be able to like thrive in it and like enjoy this journey. And so if you know, if you're looking at other events that you want to come to that either Ruck's a part of or I'm a part of or both part of or whatever, I want people to know that like, if you have any reservations about coming out, like they can always reach out to me and ask.
Same.
Like, you know what I mean? Like always. And like, and I always tell my girls, like, I'm like, look, just show up. Just like I did for the reunion, just like I did for, you know, today, even like, just like showing up is going to put you so much farther forward mentally, physically, whatever it might be.
You never know who you're going to meet.
Oh yeah.
You know,
or connect
too. You know, so like you got to show up, you know.
And I look at it too, like people always say like, oh, that was a wasted interview or that's a wasted this or where I'm like, you make the best of it.
Absolutely.
Like, even though like I went to that reunion or whatever, and it was great and it was cool, whatever. And like, actually like, went on like a date afterwards or something. The one person I didn't talk to in high school, like anyway. And it was, again, I was like, I'm going to go eat regardless. Like, so if you if you come in with like, cool. And then it's like, yeah. And so it was a nice time. That did it go anywhere? No. But like, again, it was an opportunity for me to step outside my comfort zone.
For sure.
Because it would have been so much easier for me to eat there by myf.
Yeah.
Like,
and what if it would have went somewhere?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like you don't know unless you know, do it.
Yes.
And you know, you gotta let yourself be open, you know.
And that's hard after grief. And that's hard after loss. Like that is a very,
it is really hard.
Yes. And knowing, because if you did go like me on that full end of like, oh, you like really told everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like whatever. And like, I will say I told Joe and then that like, that was the first time I genuinely got to tell my entire story.
Right.
With all of it. Like I've alluded to things, I've kind of mentioned, you know, you've been on here, whatever. Because again, it was such a traumatic and hard time. And people didn't see any falter. Like they didn't the whole time.
Yeah.
Like I kept it together that well.
Right.
But they had no idea the mental and like the sadness and the fortitude that like I had to have to just like keep my head above water.
Yeah.
You know? And so I tried to be real and open about that, but it's almost like I had no support in the time and I was just trying to move forward. I was like, I don't even know how to talk about it. And so that's where the counseling, that's where the grief, like that allowed me to be able to talk about it.
Talking about it really helps. You know, we did a mental health seminar last year and, you know, I spoke and told my whole story.
Love that.
And I speak all the time. You know, I talk to high schools and stuff like that. And I never get nervous speaking, but I wasn't really nervous, but it was different.
Yeah.
You know, when you're opening up and making yourself that vulnerable about, you know, everything you went through. And so it was a different feeling. And, you know, after that, I feel like that, you know, that allowed me to open up the doors to be able to talk about it on podcasts and be able to, you know, talk about it on interviews and stuff like that. But you got to talk about it, you know, and, I don't know if if my fear was like just breaking down on stage or whatever. But you know, if that happens, that happens.
Right.
You know, that shows your human side.
Yes.
You know, it was a comment that I got. It was either earlier this year or last year, and I don't even remember what I posted, but I remember somebody wrote and they said, you know, thanks, Ruck, for showing your human side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I am human. Like,
yeah,
you know
exactly.
like,
yeah.
You know, I am. And so, you know, we deal with the same things that anybody else does.
Right.
And we deal with, you know, trauma and we deal with depression and we deal with different things. And so, you know, social media, you know, people post the good stuff.
Yeah.
And they'll always, you know, post, they're not full circle about their life.
Right.
And, you know, people do get that perception of you that, you know, your life's just great all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just not realistic. Everybody deals with things.
And that's again why I try to post as much as I can and do this podcast and be like as in the moment and real with everything.
Right.
Because that was something that I found that like for that small period of time, like I couldn't be that because I just didn't know how, you know, with everything. And it almost just seemed like silly. Like I couldn't even take a photo. Like I used to always take a photo of myself, like a selfie, you know, like, and that was like kind of my thing and like straight on.
Yeah.
And for a while, like I couldn't even like do it. Like I had to either turn the camera and like, I don't use filters or ads or anything, but I couldn't because my smile was not the same. My eyes were not the same.
You talking about after your grief?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy how that, like, even like, you know, I still tell, you know, my wife to this day, you know, I'm still not the same person I was before 2020. You know, it
does shape you.
It changed, yeah. You know, it does.
But like I am to the point where like I think I took like my first like face, you know, selfie or whatever, like during my prep. So I'm like, you know, drunk, like just like so tired, dehydrated, whatever. And I was like, dang, like I feel really good. I mean, I like just because I could do that.
Yeah.
And because I got so on that level of like that, like, oh my gosh, think about what's important. Your life is short. Yep. Like you went through some stuff. Yes. But things are only getting better. And now you're pushing yourself through another thing. You have something to fight for. Like, and so it was a really beautiful moment. So again, it's like, if I wouldn't have, you know, put myself out there in a vulnerable way to do, you know, do the bodybuilding show and whatever, I may not have gotten myself like fully back, if that makes sense, or a part of it fully back. Yeah. And so it was just like, again, piecing that together. Yeah. And it was really special.
Steps. You know, it's all about taking steps. You know, I'm obviously completely different than I was, you know, this time last year, and you know, obviously completely different than I was in 2020. Yeah, you know, so it takes time and it does take steps,
and it shows growth too. Because I feel like, I mean, because again, I never wanted to be the same person, but it was like it happened so fast that it feels like it went from like 0 to 100 real quick. Yeah, and then so now it's kind of in this like slow, like okay, like we're climbing, like we're feeling like good again. And that was such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but like I said, it would not have happened if I wouldn't have talked about it and started this podcast. Like, I think we started it like a couple months after he had passed, or maybe even around the time he like before. And it really saved me, and like to have that safe space, and then like having my friends and like going on their stuff, or like doing public speaking engagements, or doing, I got one coming up. It's going to be talking about like loving your body throughout. And it's like, that's super cool, because I find that that's super special, but not a lot of people have always thought that that was like, a big thing to talk about. But like for men, like loving your body throughout your journey is huge. And like with all the insecurities and stuff. So it's like, so it's cool. So I'm excited for those things. And it just seems like so many awesome things are happening. And yeah, so it's just like, if you continue to move forward and not, let it hit you down.
You got to keep moving forward. Yeah. Because if you don't, it can destroy you.
Right.
And so you got to just keep pushing, like it's like we talked about, nothing's promised.
Yeah.
And so, I always tell people, like, when you leave this earth, like, people are not going to talk about how much money you got. They're not going to talk about how many shows you won.
Right.
They're not going to talk about any of that.
Yeah.
They're going to talk about how you impacted their life.
Yes.
And so the impact that you have with different people, man, that's the most important part.
Yep.
Of your whole life. That's your journey. Yep. Your journey is impacting people, helping people.
Yes.
It's not the house, it's not the car, it's not the money, it's not the, the titles, the trophies, or whatever.
Right.
It's the impact of the people. Those platforms and everything that you get are to be able to impact people.
Yes.
And so you got to make sure you use that.
I love that. Oh, that was beautiful. So real quick, for everybody who has been listening, tell them, your website, Instagram, all those things, so that they can see your journey. They can reach out again. Ruck, like I said, like I saw you, I'd seen you at like some shows and things like that, but this is like, the memory of you for me is not like anything I've seen on like posing, or, or you on stage competing, where you were literally at Olympus, two like Stairmasters down from me, like hoodie forward, sweat dripping, whatever. And I was like, I don't even know if that's him or whatever. But I was like, damn, he's working. Like, I ain't even gonna talk to him right now. Like, you know what I mean? But it was like, because that's how I am. Like, I was like in it and doing my stairs and stuff. And I'm just like, man, this is the coolest thing to see. I didn't know if he had a show coming up. I didn't know, whatever. But it was the work in just that, that I was like, man, like that's somebody that like I would love in my circle. Like that's somebody that like I feel like throughout the support and everything like that, like I could vibe with. So that was super cool. So
and and that's the thing, I do love the, the circle that we have here, because, everybody is motivated and everybody's pushing each other to be better.
Yes.
Everybody's super supportive, and you can't find that anywhere.
Right.
You gotta, we have, I will say Murfreesboro has a very special, area, because, I always tell people, fitness here is stupid. Like, it's the only place you can go, or the restaurant where, the waiter can be 300 pounds with a six pack. Yeah. Like, fitness is crazy.
Yeah.
But just, and I think a lot of that, being able to help people, to be better, and being able to strive, doing bodybuilding and, doing CrossFit, or just doing any activity like that, like strongman or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are hard sports.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It takes a lot, and it takes people around you to be able to help push you to be able to do that.
Yes.
And so I love our circle here. I think it's cool. I think it's,
I'm very thankful for it. Every time I drive into the borough, I used to be, I'd be like, ugh, the borough, just because like with high school and stuff, and not feeling, I was more insecure, and like I just didn't have like, you just think about stuff like that.
Right.
And then to like head to that reunion and be like, hey, let's freaking go. Like I felt good. Like it was just such a full circle, but full switch of just like, man, like I am very thankful for this life, and very thankful for those around me, and it just everybody just being so cool. And like I said, I can call Tyler up anytime. Logan, Joe was awesome. Like you're awesome. Like it's just like all of you.
Well, one thing I can say about you, your confidence and your energy is so contagious. Like,
thank you.
Anywhere that I see you at, just you have that personality and that vibe that when you hit the room, it brightens the room. Thanks. And so that's just, that's you. And, from your story of everything you've gone through, and still having that, that's impressive. That shows a strong person.
Thank you. I definitely had talked about that before, about like, I didn't want to let anybody steal my light.
Absolutely.
And like that was a post I just did actually, that was like pretty emotional, but like it was of me and Wes, and like, and just how it is now, like me by myself, and like to see that like it's not a negative, it's not a sad thing, it's just a very real thing, and people go through this shit, you know.
Yeah.
And you would never expect it to happen to you, but once you decide that you're not gonna let someone steal your light again, and like you're gonna get back your happiness, like you will.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell people all day long, like they were like, how did you decide to like, do the stairs and you do all these things and whatever? And I was like, bro, I just didn't think about it. Like I just like did it and like moved forward and like and rocked with it. And it was great. And like, I don't know, like life for me, it's so funny, like with the business stuff, like that's the fun.
Yeah.
Like all day long, like if you want me to, I actually, my whole goal growing up was like, I wanted to be sponsored by like, Sports Center, ESPN or whatever, or whoever to like sponsor me to work out all day long.
Right.
That is what I wanted.
That's like, funny because that was my goal when I first started competing. I was like, I just want to work out for a living.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's really what I said.
And then I got injured and I was like, well, shoot, like, that it's gonna be a little harder for me to like do all those workouts. But like I still could. And again, because I just loved it. I'm like, this is like the fun part. Yeah. That was cool. The food, that was kind of annoying or whatever. But
the hardest part.
Yeah. But once I got it, then it's like, okay, cool. Now we're with that too. And so it's just like I would rather deal with all that stuff versus taxes and the nonsense of like I just I don't even want to. I don't even want to think about it. Like it's the worst.
People don't understand. Like when you're an entrepreneur, man, it's so much more behind the scenes. Like it's a grind. It's an absolute grind.
It takes a special person and a special mindset.
You know, it's a never die situation. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have that mentality.
But yes, I want everybody that is listening, if you are like an entrepreneur, like we said before, like if you ever want to reach out, like ask us any questions, or even like if you ever need to lean on anybody or you need to talk stuff, like I'm always down. I'm always down to collaborate, always down for anything. And I really appreciate y'all driving in, like coming in, like because it means a lot. And I'm just very excited for this next season. So thank you again for coming.
I appreciate you having me.
All right. Until next time.
All right. See you guys.